Hi, my name is Carly Dye, and I'm the creator of Mental Health Not Just a Trend. The idea for this project was to educate the younger generation about mental illnesses, whether they're developed or inherited, as well as to teach about coping mechanisms, give resources to those who are struggling with mental illnesses, and help family members and friends of people who have mental illnesses and just don't know where to start to help. I first started struggling with depression and anxiety when I was in sixth grade. Um, at that point, I was severely mentally and physically bullied in middle school. Um, and by the time I was about to enter high school, I was just about ready to give up on everything life, um, a future, and I was planning to end my own life. I just felt a feeling of despair and like I couldn't ever have a purpose. So, my life goal now is to help those who I can with their mental health and teach people about it, whether they know not so much about it or have a person in their life that struggles with a mental illness.
I'm Robin Ellison, and I'm the education coordinator at Prisma Health. Currently, I primarily teach mental health first aid through a federal SAMHSA grant. I do a lot of speaking just in general about mental illness, teaching about mental illness. In terms of at the hospital, I also supervise, we have a crisis program for adolescents, and I supervise the education portion of that. I'm actually a teacher. So I'm a regular ed and a special ed teacher. Started off in as a regular ed teacher and then got a master's in special education. But I actually grew up in the psychiatric field. My dad was a psychiatrist.
My name is Joshua Patowski. I'm a licensed clinical social worker working both independently and then also as a cognitive behavioral therapist for Palo Alto Therapy in Palo Alto, California. For the most part, I'm providing individual psychotherapy to adolescents and adults, so ages 13 up, to be in computer science. I've wanted to teach, which I still want to do. I'm currently pursuing a doctorate. And then kind of inched toward psychology. And then that got me to my undergraduate major, which was social and behavioral sciences, and then kind of fell into social work through personal experience. My late best friend, she passed away in 2011. Social workers were a core part of her life.
Mm-hmm.
She was a foster child. She had a genetic illness called cystic fibrosis. It's essentially a genetic death sentence. So she had a lot of social workers in her lives managing various parts of her life, whether it be placement in a home or her medical care. She was the biggest influence on my career choice, was meeting a lot of social workers who came back into her life just to see how she was doing after many years, and also the ones that actively took care of her in the hospital settings that she was in, that I spent a lot of time with her in, and just seeing a lot of gaps that needed to be filled. Not that these social workers weren't doing a great job, just that there weren't enough people to do the job.
My name is Christina Dye, and I'm a registered nurse. I take care of patients and their families, both mentally and physically, spiritually, whatever needs that I can meet. I was inspired by my school nurse when I was in high school.
I'm Katie Hallbrook, and I struggle with eating disorder and anxiety.
I'm DJ Dye, and I struggle with ADHD, depression, and anxiety.
My name is Zachary Redder, and I have struggled with Asperger's syndrome.
I am Diane Rogers, and I have struggled with depression.
Hi, I'm Milo Jacobs, and I struggle with anxiety, depression, and autism.
Melanie Saw, and I struggle with depression and anxiety. I'm Meredith Drake, and I struggle with ADHD and anxiety. My name is Ella, and I struggle with anxiety.
My mental illness, it doesn't really hit me until the night when you're just kind of chilling by yourself. And I just kind of reflect on the day and just like all the missed opportunities I have because I'm kind of like an overachiever. And we're like, oh, I could have got this done today, or I could have done this, or I could have done this better. And then I just like start stressing out, and then the anxiety just kicks in, and then I'm not able to fall asleep. And that's usually just what happens.
Wake up in the morning, sometimes I don't want to get out of bed, sometimes I just want to get out of bed to take a shower and take a cold shower, which helps a lot. And at night, sometimes my anxiety gets to me and I don't really sleep a lot.
Depending on my environment, it can be anywhere between nice and easygoing to I keep to myself until I am out of said environment.
Well, I start off the morning with journaling, and then I do my Bible study, and then I usually sometimes it's worse than others, but if it's a worser day, I usually cry myself to sleep. Or other days, usually my friends can tell, so I'll have to end up talking about it even though I don't want to. But some days, it's more often than not, the days are better.
Mornings I don't want to ever get up because I'm just too sad, and I'm just like, I don't want to get up because I have to go to school and then I have to go through more drama. And then in the afternoon, I'm just like, so excited to get out of school, and it's just, man, it's just like so much relief whenever I come home and I take a shower, and it's nice whenever you get home from a long day because every day is ridiculously long at this point. I have trouble like getting ready at night because I just don't want to do it. And I don't like sleeping in my own room because I just don't like to be alone, I guess.
I can't really sit still. Sometimes it's boring, sad, lonely, and then sometimes when I hang out with my friends, I just get that random stroke of like sadness.
Especially at school, I cannot focus one bit. Like, it's impossible, literally impossible. And I'm like, really, I have anxiety about like literally anything, I guess. I don't even know. I would say I wake up and I get anxious, I guess, for the day because I don't know what's gonna come. Throughout the day, like I'll be fine, but all of a sudden, like if I'm with friends or something, I'll be like, I'm starting to get anxious, and I don't want to like embarrass myself in front of my friends a lot when I'm like anxious. I would say my anxiety mainly happens towards the end of the day, because I feel like it just builds up over time. That's mainly probably, especially like right before I get to bed. I don't know why, but I just get anxious.
I actually started therapy back in August when I was first diagnosed with anxiety. And that has really helped in seeing my therapist every week. She has taught me many coping mechanisms, one of those being just positive affirmations, just like you are good enough, and just like random sticky notes just throughout my room, or like in my planner, or just like in my phone, like inspirational quotes. Pinterest is amazing, and just positive affirmations really help me.
Yes, I have found writing out my feelings. I started a blog. I've started writing songs, and sometimes I just go outside and take walks.
Usually I'm a very sentimental person, so I have a lot of sentimental items from certain people in my life that give me comfort, and small things like that just really help me calm down and stuff like that.
Drawing, any art thing basically, like fidget toys because they're fun, and I like looking like online and stuff, like for shopping stuff. So that's kind of all my coping mechanisms. It's hard to cope, and you shouldn't just expect somebody to start coping immediately because like it takes a while. I'm still working on remembering to like do this, and if you get mad, and like to do this if you get upset. and like stuff like that.
Whenever I get anxious, I just take like deep breaths and then be like, you're fine, nothing's gonna happen. Use your like phone with your friends, use your friends, like just chill out, have fun, don't stress. Pretty much like that.
Sometimes, yes, and especially early on because I wouldn't really talk about it with people. And the more I started to open up to people and talk about it, the more I realized I was not alone. I have met many people who deal with the same thing that I do.
Yeah, all the time I feel that I'm the only one in it, and sometimes friends will get mad at me and sometimes leave me, and that hurts a lot, and I just feel really alone sometimes.
It can seem that way sometimes. Being an only child, I've had to develop friendships that feel like family after a certain amount of time.
All the time. I feel very alone and empty a lot. And I feel like no matter how hard someone else tries, they'll never be able to understand the way my depression is and the way how my heart feels in a certain sense. Because I know that everybody's battles is different and everyone struggles with different reasons of why it happens and why they struggle.
Definitely. It's extremely difficult because I have to get up and go to school every day and push through all that's going on at school. It doesn't matter. It just basically all the school cares about is my grades. You have stuff going on at home and you can't help some stuff. So that's a big thing whenever it comes to school.
Definitely. I remember one day, it was just awful. Everything that could have gone wrong. I cried probably 7 times that day. And my good friend at my high school just reached out to me and she was like, hey, Katie, I love you. I'm here for you. And the next day she actually brought me a Chick-fil-A chicken biscuit. So it just made me realize I do have people around me that do love and care about me if they notice when I'm down.
I would love that if all my close friends and family would always check on me, even if I was having a good day. I would just want someone to say, hey, how are you doing today? Or I hope you're having a good day.
No. I am one of those people that likes for people only to see the good side of them, and I don't want people to see when I'm down, and I don't like to be vulnerable in a way because I feel like that shows a type of weakness, because I was taught at a young age that crying is a weakness, and so no one should ever see you cry.
Not really, actually, because I have to go through all this explaining, and I have to explain everything to, like, every little bit. I feel like I have to explain, and then they'll start asking questions about my mental illnesses, and then they'll start asking more questions about, like, if I'm okay or not, and I just prefer to, like, keep it in and then vent to somebody that I know that I can trust. Venting to people takes a toll on them if you constantly vent, and that's something that I personally need to work on because I only vent to 2 people, and I need to start feeling more comfortable with venting to other people because I know that's slowly taking a toll on them because it hurts them having to hear all my issues and stuff like that.
Yes, especially if it's like somebody who knows I have like bad anxiety and they like know I'm going through it. Like it's always good to have somebody there to like talk to, because if you're not talking to somebody like anxiety, like I feel like it can like get worse and worse if you're like by yourself and like someone's not checking up on you. Just having somebody there always talk to you makes it feel better.
It should be talked about more because I know in the older generations, it's not really a big deal for them and they don't really understand like what we go through. And like, I don't want to say therapy is taboo to them or like medication is taboo, but it's kind of perceived that way. And as far as in schools, I think it should be taught maybe starting in middle school with, in like the PE classes, like all the sex ed and stuff, just kind of throw that in there. And because it is a big part about wellness, and mental wellness is the same as physical wellness, because if you're not mentally well, you're not physically well. So it does need to be taught and more talked about more. A lot of people who aren't mentally stable will go towards bad decisions with stuff that they might not pay attention to in sex ed. And then it spirals into other mental illnesses.
Start being more noticeable about it and teach others that may not know about mental health, because there aren't a lot of people that know what really is on the inside, and they may think it's just for attention.
I think it should be handled in different ways in different situations. Like in a workplace, I feel like they should respect it, but no, they should not use it as an excuse. Like, oh, I'm depressed today, I can't do my work to full extent. That should not be an excuse. Same thing for school. Like, unless it's like you lost a family member or certain things like that. Like, there's exceptions, but we shouldn't use it as a main excuse, because yes, it is a struggle. Just like with a learning disability, you can't use it as an excuse to cover up your issues or having a bad grade in school. You should, there's different ways to cope, and there's certain places to bring it out and not to bring it out.
I think that we should start like teaching it in elementary school, because mental illnesses start early, and if you don't get treated, like not treated, but like if you don't get like help as soon as possible, then it can really, really go downhill.
And then it progresses quickly.
Yeah, it like just it's like it's up, I'm up here, and then it's like
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Like down Mount Everest.
75% of mental illness begins before the age of 27, and the majority of it begins at a really young age. In fact, the median age of onset for anxiety is 11 years old. So, you know, when you look at where we need to talk about this stuff, we need to talk about it at elementary school. Most people don't understand what the signs and symptoms are. So what happens is, if you develop a lot of this stuff at, you know, elementary, middle, high school, and no one's discussed it, no one's educated you about it, then you go into adulthood with these diseases, and anxiety being the primary one, but anxiety tends to often co-occur with depression if it's not treated. It also tends to co-occur with substance use disorder if untreated. And so it just kind of compounds the issues.
The earlier you teach a kid something, the more likely it's going to stick. Just like, you know, it's easier to teach a kid a new language when they're 3 versus when they're 13. And we start teaching them language in high school, which is not a good time. And I'd like to see if we can do at least one thing that could set a whole series of things in motion that can set children up for success through understanding one another, decreasing stigma, reducing bullying, reducing school shootings, and of course reducing suicide. Those are all my big points.
The pandemic primarily has caused a lot of loneliness, and that's related to isolation, and not only that, but the fear of their world changing.
This past year, yes, which is of course specific to the reality of our world currently. I've definitely gotten a lot more requests for teens over this past year than I used to.
1 minute the world was one way, and then a snap of a finger it was completely different, and that causes a lot of uncertainty. We're adults, we can cope, but children are different.
Everyone knows someone or has experienced something related to mental illness. Even if it's not to the place where it's diagnosed, it's a continuum. Your self-care has to be the primary thing, because if you don't do that, then you can cause secondary trauma to the people you work with, the people you love. I always relate this to when you look at people with different illnesses. If something's wrong with your bone, you look at the bone. If something's wrong with your blood, you look at your blood. If something's wrong with your heart, you look at the heart. If something's happening with your brain, we don't look at the actual organ. We look at all the exterior, the signs and symptoms piece. Saying, you know, I noticed that you don't smile anymore. I noticed, you know, that you've been wearing the same clothes for several days. I noticed these things. Anybody that works in education extremely values confidentiality of that student and respecting that student as a human being, and not talking about that student to other people.
There is a serious lack of resources. in relation to what kids can do to receive mental health services. And so, for example, my son, he does see a therapist at school 1 day a week, but he's not available any other day but that 1 day a week. It's not a full-time resource, and he was referred to mental health services by the school. So obviously they, pointed out an issue. It was evident that it was there, but then there wasn't a lot of help in that aspect. So I think that there should be a full-time mental health professional available to staff and students of every single public school in our nation.
If they start to isolate and withdraw, if students are starting to move and sit at the back of the classroom, if you're not seeing a lot of facial expressions, things like that, a noticeable loss of weight or gaining of weight, either one, there can be just, in general, their typical day-to-day responses, how they interact with peers, how they show up in their classes. If there's a shift there, anything like that is really important. The first thing, again, is to have the conversation with the friend and say, I'm really concerned about you. I've noticed these things. There are people in our school that are trained to help you. And I know that's uncomfortable. I'll go with you. Giving them things like phone numbers. Mental Health America in Greenville has a text line because a lot of people don't want to talk. They'd rather text or things like that. So offering to do that with your friend and then also committing that, again, you're important to me, and whatever we talk about, I'm not going to share that. If it's something that I'm afraid that, it could be dangerous for your health or your safety, then that's the only time that I'm going to break that promise, because I have to keep you safe because you're important to me. It's that line between what is my relationship? What are my tools? If this is to the place where someone's suicidal, clearly you need to get somebody else involved. Other students are the key to improving all of this.
If you've got one teacher to 35 to 40 students, picking up on their nuances is going to be a lot harder. Being a group therapist and having done that for quite some time, I've got 10 people in there, that's the max. And they even suggest after 7 or 8 that there's another person in there to help pick up on those kinds of things. And I'm specifically trained to see those kinds of things, unlike teachers, which, they don't receive comprehensive mental health training.
There's some clear-cut signs that something isn't right. When one of your children starts isolating, you notice a change in grades. Even in my profession, when people don't really respond how you would expect an adult or a child to respond to something appropriately, that's typically a sign that something underneath isn't right. And that sign means that it's our responsibility to try to dig deeper to solve the issue. The main thing is not to judge, and it doesn't even have to be a friend. As humanity, it is our responsibility to reach out to one another when there are signs that something is not right. And typically the ones that are struggling are the ones that are reacting in odd ways or have odd behaviors. And especially in the middle school years, that type of behavior causes other children to make fun of or talk about or treat differently those children, when in actuality we should be doing the opposite by including, getting involved, and seeing what we can do to be supportive and helpful in those situations. We all have a responsibility to anyone that's suffering by first reaching out in true friendship, and being a true friend is someone who cares about you.
Sympathy is just that, oh, sorry, it sucks to be you kind of thing. Yeah. And it's disconnecting. And empathy is connecting. It builds connection because you have to put yourself in that person's shoes to feel what they feel. And that's a vulnerable position to put yourself in because it's going to be uncomfortable.
We need to make sure that the kids are getting the help they need, because so many kids struggle with it, and then adults act like it's not real when it is very, very real.